Hello Year 9, it's Mr Godman here, and in this video we're going to look at what to expect on your Year 9 exam. Remember, in this exam paper you're going to have 3 questions: a similarity and difference question, an explain question, and a judgment question. And this video is going to show you how to tackle each of those. So the first question that you are going to get is a similarity and difference question. Here's my advice on how to tackle it. It's worth 4 marks, so spend just 5 minutes. You'll be asked to compare 2 time periods of medicine. You need to give one similarity or one difference between the 2 time periods. And you need to support that point with a specific example from both time periods. So here's an example of what this might look like. Explain one way in which ideas about disease in medieval England were similar to ideas in 1900. As you can see, we have 2 time periods to compare. The first one is medieval England, and that's between 1250 and 1500. And time period 2 is 1900. In this case, we've been asked to focus on ideas about disease, and we need to give a way that ideas were similar in those 2 time periods. Let's look at what an answer might look like. Now remember, because this is only worth 4 marks, we're not going to write very much on it, only about 3 sentences. Our first sentence is going to be our big point. So in this case, one similarity between the 2 periods is that they both had rational ideas about disease. Now I need to support that with an example from both time periods. So first of all, I have an example from medieval England. Here's a rational idea which they had about disease. They thought it might be caused by unbalanced humours inside the body. And then I need an example from my second time period, so from 1900. And by then, people knew that disease was caused by microbes. So this was another rational idea based on Pasteur's work. So as you can see, I've tried to include some specific detail on both of the time periods I was given. Next up, you'll be given an explain question. Here are my tips on how to approach it. It will be worth 12 marks, so spend about 20 minutes on it. You'll be asked to explain a change or a development in medicine, and you need to explain 3 reasons. Each one should be in a separate paragraph, and there's no need for an introduction or a conclusion for this type of question. Let's look at an explain question. I'm going to ask you to pause the video now and read this for yourself. So, what are we being asked to do here? Well, we need to explain why prevention of smallpox improved in the 19th century. And we need to really focus in on explaining why it improved rapidly. That means, why did it get better so quickly? Then we're given some stimulus material for our answer. These are some suggested ideas or points that we might want to write about. We don't have to. But look, we're given a reminder that we must also use information of our own if we want to access the top levels of the mark scheme. So here's how I would tackle that question. I need to explain 3 reasons. So my first reason is going to be inoculation. It wasn't very successful, it was expensive, and it didn't always work. And that's why Jenner was looking for a better way. The second reason I'm going to explain is Jenner's work. He came up with the brilliant idea of using cowpox as a vaccination. He tested his idea methodically, and when the Royal Society refused to publish his work, Jenner self-published. I need one more reason why prevention of smallpox improved rapidly, so I'm going to write about the British government. The government invested money in Jenner's work, allowing him to open a vaccination clinic. And the government also took action later to try and make sure people got vaccinated. They made vaccination for smallpox compulsory, and they introduced fines. Okay, time to look at question 3 now. This is the judgment question. Here are my tips for doing this question. It's worth 16 marks, so look to spend about 25 minutes on it. You will be given a statement and asked to evaluate it. You need to write a balanced answer here, and you need to have a short introduction and a short conclusion in your work. So here's an example of a judgment question. Again, I'll ask you to pause the video now and have a read. Let's look at how the question is structured. First of all, we are given a statement to evaluate, and we are reminded that we need to support our evaluation with some explanation. Once again, we have some stimulus material that we can write about if we want to, but we don't have to. And we're also reminded that to get to the top levels of the mark scheme, we have to have some information of our own as well. So let's zoom in for a moment on the statement which we were given. This is the statement that we need to evaluate. It's worth reading the statement several times just to make sure that you have understood exactly what the statement says. Here, we've been given a time frame to focus on between 1700 to 1900, and we need to make sure that what we write is relevant to that time period. We've also been given a focus here, ideas about disease. So we're not really interested in treatments or preventions. For this question, we have to focus on ideas about disease. And here's what we need to make a judgment about. Individuals had the biggest impact on ideas about disease. And that started me thinking, is that true? Did individuals really have the biggest impact? Or did other factors have a bigger impact? And I need to take a few moments to think about that. I'm starting to ask myself, which individuals had a big impact on ideas about disease in this time period? I'm also thinking to myself, what other factors had an impact on ideas about disease? For example, technology. So it's worth reading the statement carefully, checking that you understand it, and having a really good think about what you might include in your answer. So let's have a look at how to structure our answer. Our answer will start with an introduction. In that intro, we're going to tell the reader what topics we're going to write about. We'll write about 3 topics. In the main paragraphs, we're going to write 1 paragraph about each topic. And we need to make sure that our answer has balance. That means we're going to consider both sides. Lastly, our answer needs to have a conclusion in which we give our overall decision and we summarise our winning points. Let's zoom in a little closer on the main paragraphs. Now, when we write our main paragraphs, each main paragraph should either support the statement in the question challenge the statement in the question, or it might both support and challenge the statement. Let's look at how this would work in practice. So here's our statement. Individuals had the biggest impact on ideas about disease in the period 1700 to 1900. And I'm going to show you the paragraph plan for my main paragraphs. In my first main paragraph, I'm going to both support and challenge the statement. So I'm going to write about an individual, Pasteur, who had a big impact on ideas about disease. He developed the germ theory. However, another factor played a key role here too, and that was technology. In my second paragraph, I'm also going to support and challenge the statement. So I'm going to write about another individual who had a big impact. Koch. His research helped to develop people's ideas about bacteria and disease. However, another factor played a role here, technology. Koch relied on technology such as Petri dishes to make his developments. My third paragraph is going to support the statement. I'm going to write there about John Snow's work and how he changed people's ideas about cholera, proving that the disease was linked to contaminated water. After writing my three main paragraphs, I'm going to make my overall decision. And my overall decision is that I think technology was more important than individuals. Here's another statement from a judgment question. In this case, the statement is, there was very little progress in the prevention of disease between 1700 and 1900. How would you go about evaluating that statement? I want you to pause the video now and think about that for a moment on your own. When you're ready, hit play. So let's take a look here. Well, we have a time frame to focus on between 1700 to 1900. We've been given a focus as well, the prevention of disease. So we're not interested in treatments or ideas about disease, only in preventions. And we've been asked to make a judgment about this. There was very little progress. That starts me thinking, was there very little progress in the prevention of disease? And I'm starting to think about what my main paragraphs could be about. Well, I'm thinking about writing a paragraph on Jenner's vaccination. His vaccination was an example of progress. It prevented smallpox. However, the progress was slow. People were slow to accept the vaccination, and it didn't lead directly to any other vaccinations. Maybe I'll write a paragraph about Lister's work too, because his work on antiseptics prevented infections in surgery. Once again though, that was slow progress. People were slow to accept antiseptics at first. Maybe my third paragraph will be about the 1875 Public Health Act. That was another piece of progress in preventing disease. It helped to clear up towns and make sure that there were no further outbreaks of diseases like cholera. One of the best things that you can do when preparing for your exam is to practice planning how to do these judgment questions. So here are two more judgment questions that you could practice on. Now you don't need to write them out, but you could plan your answer what would you write about in your 3 main paragraphs? Before I end the video today, I'm going to give you one final tip. When you're revising, learn your knowledge organisers off by heart. This will really help you to remember the key information that you need when you get into the exam. And the best way to learn your knowledge organisers is by studying them and self-testing. This can be done by covering them up and seeing if you can recall what was on your knowledge organiser. Maybe you could get somebody else to test you, or perhaps you could create a set of flashcards that you could use to test yourself. Good luck with the revision, Year 9.